Hello, everyone. This is kind of an exciting day. It is round 2 of trying to get the broadcast working in the Presence Posse free Facebook group. We are still the Presence Posse and we are still broadcasting. We're just trying to figure it out. So I have with me Kobe-wan, Sir Bobby Cobb, and I am Miriam Siegel. And we are, what do you call it? We are cooperating on the tech. So let me see. I'm having Bobby check, and please, we're just asking you to bear with us. Do you see us in the group?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm in there, but I'm not seeing it. So,
All righty. I'm going to do a little side swipey thing. What they've also done, so you guys get to learn at the same time as us. They've also told us not to have Facebook on at the same time. So it's like, well, how are we supposed to check if it's working if we can't be on Facebook? So I am going to, you still can't see us, right, Bobble?
Correct.
All right, let's see.
I do not.
This will help. So now I pressed another button and this is actually supposed to work. So it says that we're live in the group. And I got it. It doesn't look like it.
I'm not seeing it either. But
yeah. Although it does take, this is like our topic today.
Oh! I just got it.
Well, that sounded really exciting.
It's like our topic today.
I think we're live. Yes.
And then on mine anyway, we disappeared and it's just me.
Yes, but that may be because you're speaking. Let's see if it goes back or not. Well, let's carry on.
What was happening earlier? It was going back and forth. All right. For those of you, there we are. See, it's jumping around a bit. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. So for those of you who would like to follow along and don't want to be in the group bouncing back and forth, you are welcome to go to my profile because I'm also, to be on the safe side, broadcasting there because we were trying to get YouTube to work and all of that stuff. So let's see. Now this won't work for me. Okay, y'all, if you're having trouble seeing us, go to my Facebook group, in my Facebook personal profile. It is facebook.com/miriam.siegel1 / facebook.com/miriam.siegel1. I'd like the number 1 / and we apologize for this. All right, let's see. So we'll just kind of, let's see, I'm getting a message. It's really interesting because we are the Presence Posse and we are doing things live and present. And our topic today is presence and outcomes. And our outcome for this live in the group thing is not working very well. Let's see. We're having trouble streaming to your destination. Is it possible the stream was ended or deleted on the destination? This can also occur if the RTM.
I'm still seeing you on there, so I think
or stream key is incorrect. We'll keep trying and let you know if it's resolved. All right. So they say there's something wrong with the stream key, although it was sending for a moment. So yeah, I don't know. We're going to just keep on going and do the best that we can. And thank you all again for bearing with us as we try to maneuver the new Facebook group thingy. All right, let's get back to presence and outcomes, or let's keep going actually with presence. This is more correct. You wrote on Facebook, this is the second part of our trilogy, by the way, on presence and creation. So we have that sort of in the back of our minds, this idea of presence and creation. And you wrote, for presence and outcomes, Mr. Bobby Cobb, whether you're in the achieve or die trying camp or believe that the journey is the reward, this episode is for you. Would you like to say anything more about that? The achieve or die trying, or the journey is the reward?
Yeah, and that has a little bit to do with my own journey because I was very much a get her done or die trying. That was the mindset that I subscribed to. I don't think I've ever said that quite that way before, but it's like I, I think of sometimes I used to travel on business a lot, and times that I had just like 10 or 15 minutes to get from one end of the airport to another is, I mean, there are few things in life that will get you as focused on that. I can remember actually one time that like we had a minute to go to two concourses and I was ready to give up. I was all dressed in my business suit and everything. And this other guy that was right behind me that was much younger, he was like 25 or 30. And he's like, stick with me. We can do this. And I'm like, all right, lead the way. And it was beautiful. We made it like, and they ended up, either they had a delay or they may have even held it for us. I don't know, but we made it. But in those moments, you are able to constrict your focus and attention and intention like a beam of a laser. It's so very focused. And even the people that are on the sides of the airports offering the free credit cards or the free gift certificate, if you take a quick survey or whatever, they can see you coming and they don't even try. They're like, oh, that guy's got blinders on and he's just moving on through. And for me, for a long time, that was kind of just, that was my life. It was going from one goal to the next to the next. I was living the life of an accomplishment monster. And with the folks that I work with, which tend to be busy executives and very achievement oriented people who are waking up one day after climbing to the top of the mountain where they were promised it was going to be nothing but blue skies and sunshine and just effortless attainment of everything that you've ever dreamed of in life. And they found out that that promise was empty. And they achieved the great job and the trophy spouse and the car and all of the money in the bank, and life wasn't any more pleasant. In fact, it's common that a new client will tell me, I've never been as happy as I was when I just launched my business. Everything was on a shoestring, but we were all in the foxhole together. And man, every day we were scraping to keep the lights on, but it was fun and we were together and we were a team. And now that the goal's been realized, it's kind of like, is this it? So that accomplishment monster running from one gate to another in the airport is a mindset. And if we wanted to think about the opposite end of that spectrum of, hey, let's go here and do XYZ, but then just maintaining a very open idea and attitude about what may show up along the way and be perfectly willing to, take a side trip. And you see that in like road movies a lot. People want to take a detour to go see the biggest ball of yarn that's ever been collected, and that'll be a tourist place out in the middle of nowhere that people might check and go and see. And both of those ways are ways of approaching life. They both have unique advantages and benefits and shortcomings and issues. And there's a million spectrums in between. And so what I'm hoping this conversation is how can we use our relationship with a specific outcome as a tool for self-exploration. And one of the reasons that I kind of began looking at this approach was something that I had built along with other people, and a change that was happening that was completely outside of our control. It was just the direction of the company that we were working for had shifted. And we all thought, man, we've built this, we've been building it for 6 years, and they're going to mess it up. And they did. And thankfully, they recognized that they had messed it up pretty quickly. And what ended up happening was everything got torn down. What was previously built was torn down by the new thing. The new thing was realized to be a mistake, and that got torn down. And that created the opportunity for us to build it all over again, knowing what we knew the first time around. And we all looked back, there were 8 of us that were very core to this organization that we had built. And when we built the something new, we all sat down one time at a dinner and said, if it hadn't have been for the fact that epic screw up had have occurred, this would have never happened. It was the fact that I don't think the company was really trying to burn anything down or even willing to burn things down. I think the fire, the metaphorical fire, was just a result of a series of mistakes. And in a short period of time, we had the benefit of looking back and going, man, we thought that this was going to be the end, but actually it was just the end of the last chapter and the beginning of an even better new beginning. And so those are 2 different approaches, both of which I find really valid and useful in certain circumstances. And there are times that I enjoy employing both of those strategies. And to me, it's also kind of fun to, sometimes say, I've been working on this for a little while and I've been taking the casual, let's see what happens approach. But now this is happening. So I really need to shift gears here and get into the do it or die approach. And sometimes that's useful for the last little part of the prospect or process. And I think it's just fun to kind of play with the energy and see what it is and maintain an open flexibility even when you've got the blinders on. And the blinders on, some people confuse it as and that's where I was confusing a mindset as a lifestyle. and it was the classic thing of, if your only tool is a hammer, you walk around through life looking for nails. And that was a period. And there were some great things that came of that. So I'm not attempting to dissuade others from doing that. Sometimes that's appropriate, and it doesn't have to be the only tool in your toolbox. So that's kind of my thought. I love accomplishing things, and I think in many ways, I'm sitting here trying to think if I'm accomplishing more letting the reins go a little bit. And I got a feeling that may not be true. But I think the process I'm finding a lot more enjoyable and a lot less stressful. And I think the stuff that I'm creating now is more elegant,
Mm.
if that makes any sense at all.
Is it more elegant because you're more present in, or more in the flow, or?
Um, well, truthfully, I don't know the answer to that question, but
Oh.
I suspect that that is the case. I'm saying that because this new book that I've been talking about for the past 6 weeks or so, it's the first. This is actually my sixth book. I've been saying it's my fifth, but when I went and looked at them, I also I rewrote and reinterpreted an older book, and sort of reimagined it. So it really, I wasn't writing it. I was kind of copying and updating a version of something that existed. But this is the first thing that I've ever read or written to be read that I've enjoyed looking back and reading and thinking, hey, there's some pretty good stuff here. I mean, I was one of those, you hear actors a lot of times when they're like, I cannot watch myself act. I've never seen any of the movies that I've been in. And I can understand that too, because previously I was only looking at things that I could have done better. You know, that was like the prism that I was viewing my previous work. And I would hear every time my throat is a little too gravelly in an audiobook, or any time that I write something that I took 3 sentences to say that I could have said in 3 words. And I'm just like, oh, that could have been nicer. And this, I'm kind of looking at that and go, hey, this is pretty good. I like this.
Cool.
Which is actually new for me. So
Very
but
cool.
yeah. What's your experience? What are your initial thoughts on this as a subject?
I was actually just going to say life is a process. So we're learning all the time. And then it's not difficult to look back on something. Like I look back on my, so I'm creating courses and I'm using things that I've learned and using things that I use. And I looked back at my first master's thesis and I went, my goodness, did I write that? It's like, it's actually brilliant. The language is amazing. And I'm going, that was me. I did talk like that. It's amazing how when you get into that very academic space and what your language becomes, and then you go out of it for a while, and then you become more like, well, I'm actually talking to people. So yeah, that's an interesting experience. And then there's the sort of the revised version of different books where you can always update, because it's like, okay, that's how I thought and that's what I lived that time, but now it's different. I've evolved and I can update my book. So my thing is, I'm going to play with this from a few different angles. I know in the, I don't know if you want to call it spiritual world or the alternative world or whatever, they'll talk about turning things over to the universe. Everything. Some people believe that everything's preordained anyway. So it's just a matter of, but there's this sort of general understanding that everything that happens is for your highest good, no matter what. So whatever the outcome you think you wanted, life has another plan. We've actually talked about this when it comes to 12-step groups, as well as people, or even I think John Lennon is purported to have said, and I haven't actually fact checked whether he actually said it, but something in the same lines as 12-step programs, where just you've got your plan and God's laughing kind of thing. My experience is whatever happens, I can choose to learn from it or I can fight it. If I'm just going to be general, I can choose to learn from it or I can fight it. And I've watched people. I work as a psychotherapist and I do observe other people, not just my own clients. And I've known people that have spent decades mulling over something that happened, decades ago. They don't come out of it.
Yeah.
Because they had this idea of a different outcome, or they want to punish somebody for having done something that produced a different outcome. And they don't learn what there might have been, or there most likely were, gold nuggets in the experience, and they don't get that far.
Right.
So a lot of that's one of the things I kind of like about this sort of alternative or spiritual or whatever you want to call it, idea of it's always happening for your highest good. Whatever's happening is always happening for your highest good. Now, I mean, there are some things going on you got to wonder, but we don't always know the bigger picture. And I have been fortunately pleasantly surprised by some of the worst experiences of my life being very valuable. I'm not saying they became the best experiences of my life, but they became very valuable because I was able to take the gold nuggets and use them and realize that I grew, I developed from the experience, kind of like going back and looking at a book and then rewriting it, revising it. So that's one side of it. When I was studying to be a singing teacher, and actually as a student, as a singer, I studied and practiced something called the Alexander technique. And it is a technique for singers and actors mainly. It's a vocal technique, yeah. And Alexander talks about, it's F. Matthias Alexander, he talks about something called end gaining. And I really like that idea of end gaining. Because
say a little bit more about that. What in that? How is that used in that context?
Yeah, I was just going to compare it to what I like to do when I work with clients, depending on where they're at, is talk about eye on the prize, right? If they're struggling to stick with whatever they want to stick with to get to where they want to get to, I will often use that expression, eye on the prize. And that is meant in a positive way. If we're going to use, or useful, helpful way, is probably, I don't know. It's a useful way. End gaining is not. End gaining will be where you're so focused on getting the result that you want that you're not in the process. You're not present to what's actually going on. And how that works in a vocal setting, just to give an example, is you're trying to hit that high note and you're focused on getting that high note, and you're doing often the same thing over and over again, or you're pushing a little bit harder, or you're doing whatever, and it's not helping. And what you're not noticing is, what are you doing with the note before that? Right? Or what are you doing leading up to the note that you want to hit? Or what if we try something completely different? And very often when that happens, like coming back to the present and the process, instead of focusing on, I got to get that note, I got to get that note, or I have to be as good as this person, or I have to sing like this person, and it's getting like locked in. What happens instead is you get present to what's going on right now. And so Alexander was all about getting present to what was going on right now, and how the body was tensing up or not, releasing all of that, creating more space. And it's very useful, but it's a different focus than eye on the prize, the way I use it. End gaining, which takes you away from the present, whereas eye on the prize is allowing you to stay present, but also stay present to your goal. So I like to use that analogy as well to make it very clear what's what there is. I mean, when is it appropriate, or when is it suitable? When is it helpful, useful, whatever word you want to use that works for you, to focus on the prize, but not in the way that you get hung up on it.
Yeah.
So that you're not in now. So the difference between going with the flow, so you don't even have a prize. there's no end gaining. You're so present that you're just flowing with whatever is there. That's another aspect. It's like I don't even care about the goal because the experience of now is so in flow and is so, well, it becomes, for me anyways, ecstatic.
Yeah.
Not ecstatic like I lose my grounding, I lose my contact with the present and the world. It's more like I am so in contact that my now is just constantly now, and it just flows on its own without me having to do anything. With end gaining, as Alexander describes it, you are working like a maniac, right? Like, what did you call? You called it some sort of monster, I think.
Accomplishment monster.
Thank you very much. I love that, accomplishment monster. It's like I am fixated. I'm gonna get this, right. It's like trying to lift a piano and sing, and there's nothing coming out, right? Whereas if you're in flow, you just, things move. So those are the kind of pictures I work very with senses, and in the world in senses, and I use those to show presence and not presence. So in here, end gaining or eye on the prize or being in flow, it's like, what's it feel like? Is this useful? Does it feel like it's supporting you or not? Does it feel like it's bringing you to presence or not? What's that about? So that's my take.
I love that.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking of, I've talked on a couple of these about some of the conditioning that I'm unwinding, and that accomplishment monster mindset / lifestyle was very much drilled into me by coaches and my mom, and coaches being like my athletic coaches when I was growing up type of stuff. That was before there was a coaching industry. And so that did a couple of things. One, I very much enjoyed the praise that I got for doing something well. So I tended to gravitate toward those things that I did well, but I also gravitated away from things that I didn't do well. And like two of those, I enjoy dancing and I enjoy movement, but I cannot stand being in a like a line dance class, or there's a dance called Nia dance, which is really, it's an amazing dance thing, but it's very structured and it's led. And I've gone to a couple of those classes, and I've gone to a couple of line dances when that was a thing back in whenever it was a thing. And I didn't like those things because, I was constantly like, no, it's 4 of these and then 4 back, and you're doing 6 and 6 back, or, whatever the movement was. So I got away from those. And I just, in my mind, I thought, I just don't like dancing.
Yeah.
But I do like dancing, it turns out. And I've started doing this technique called ecstatic dancing. And ecstatic dancing is a very going within type of experience. You are with others, 40 or 50 people, and it's a loud techno beat, vibration in your heart type of music, but it's not designed for pickup. It's not designed for networking. It's not designed for peacocking. It's designed for going within, and most of the participants are there for that. And I've noticed a couple of times, the last few times that I've done it, I was dancing with the music with no outcome. But I was like, I was in relationship with the vibration that the DJ was creating. And, the whole art of DJing ecstatic dance is reading the energy in the room and knowing when to amp it up a little bit or to slow it down a little bit. So it's such an interesting experience because we're interacting with the vibration that the DJ is placing through the speakers, but the DJ is interacting with the energy in the room. So it's like this interesting little kind of give and take sort of thing where there is almost no outcome. And I've talked about art. I had a similar relationship with art, but now I've been drawing and doing stuff for the last couple of years. And I've written poetry for 25 or 30 years, but I've only like within the last 3 or 4 years, really since the news was that Dr. Seuss was being canceled, I started showing off a lot of my poetry. And well, that's unfortunate. I had the phone on so I can look at Facebook, but that allows people to call in too. Yeah, so just and what I'm noticing is I had something that had been conditioned in me. And what I would invite the people who are listening to this is just to think about where where do you find yourself on that spectrum of, are you kind of somebody who just kind of waltzes through life and looking for little truffles along the path of life and interacting with everything that shows up? Or are you more to the accomplishment monster side? And how much flexibility do you have in your own approach to all of this? And so, I don't know, tell me kind of how does that hit you? What are your thoughts on that? And where are you in that? I'm former accomplishment monster only, but now trying to expand to invite some other things in my life. Tell me about your journey and where are you with your goal setting and accomplishments? I mean, we all have them.
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I used to actually be a competitive dancer and a dancing teacher, so it's fun to bring that up. What I have discovered here is, as I was studying craniosacral therapy, we would have silent disco in the breaks. And I'd heard of silent disco, I just didn't know what it was. But the others all knew what it was, so they all put their headphones on and they're dancing away. And I'm like, what is going on? There's not a sound in the room, right? What is going on? And then I understood that each person was listening to his or her own music. But they would sometimes see each other. They would have a moment of meeting and they would be dancing together, but completely different rhythms.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they would break out in laughter because it just didn't match. And then they would go their own way. But I thought it was wonderful because you got to be with whatever your expression was and whatever music you loved, and you weren't bothering anybody else, and dance away because that's what you felt like doing. And then if you made a connection, you made a connection, and however long that lasted. And then it, sort of went on its own. It was just an amazing experience for me. And it's such a present experience because everybody's just there doing their thing. I mean, some people are not necessarily present. They can sort of disappear into their music or whatever. But generally speaking, especially with that group, it has to do with you're working in a very present environment when you're working physically and energetically with people. So it was actually good training that way. But it reminded me of when I was an interpreter, a sign language interpreter for the deaf. And we would go to parties. Deaf people would have parties and there would be a band and the music would be playing. And of course, every person, you could feel the rhythm. I mean, they would turn up the bass like break the walls down. But even so, it didn't matter. People would, this couple would be dancing a waltz and that couple would be dancing just anything. And somebody over there would be doing pop something or other. And they did their own thing because the hard of hearing people could hear more of the music, but nobody actually heard the music except us hearing people. And I loved that. It's that same sort of what is coming from me, what is my expression right now, and I don't have to do anything else. And I mean, if they're deaf, they don't, right? They can do whatever they want. And with the silent disco is a similar thing. It's like you can do whatever you want. You choose whatever music you want. And as long as you're not smashing into somebody else and disturbing them, there's no problem. So I love that, for me, expression of presence and getting in touch with what my expression of now is right now. As a dance teacher, there's an end gaining aspect, or as a student of dance, just like with singing, there's the idea of doing this step exactly this way, or doing it the best. I was a competitive dancer, so doing it better than other people, having the best costume, having the best, being the thinnest, being able to lift your leg higher than the others, going down to the splits in all directions. All those kinds of things were very end gaining. And there's a different experience. It's also like studying singing to dancing competitively often. If you're focusing on the technical parts of it, that's as the end gaining part, rather than enjoying the experience of the dance itself and the music flowing into you and through you. In the same way that if I'm nervous before a concert, I'm not here. I'm into other people's heads and this is going to go wrong and this could go wrong and that, they're going to hate it or whatever. But when I'm in now and I'm with the band and the music is flowing and I'm picking up on these cues and we're all sort of in touch with each other, magic happens. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the thing. And the audience can pick up on that as well. And they're into that same place where we're all just now, or at least many. And it just flows and does its own thing. And again, it's not about the perfection of it. The now is perfect, just exactly the way it is. It's just vibrant. It's alive. It's beautiful. There's this wonderful connection. So I talk about the outcome now as, well, I mean, it doesn't have to be, it's not perfect. That's an outcome. But when I'm in it, I don't care. There's love just coursing through every fiber of my being. I love the feeling. I love the tone. I love what I'm hearing. I love the connection. I love being alive. I love everybody in the room. Like, and it's not woo. It is life.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And then depending, I can come back into the outcome focused end gaining kind of thing and then go over to that. Well, there is that solo. I have to remember to not sing. And then there's sometimes the musicians, I've had this happen. They're so good when they're playing their solos. I forget that I'm supposed to sing and I have to remind myself to go back in and start singing. So there's that being present to the actual structure of the song, but it's no nightmare if I forget. They just keep playing. And then somebody gives me a bit of a nudge or whatever, and that's fine. If I'm present, it becomes just part of everything. We laugh, we sing, we play, the audience laughs, right? It becomes, it's like a one unit, unified thing, breathing, living, being all together. It's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but that's kind of where I'm at with those kinds of things. And in and out, just like Eckhart would say, you do your thinking and then you go back to your being. Sometimes I have to think.
Yeah, that to me is the art. If you think of achieving outcomes, or our trilogy creation, that's about manifesting and bringing the formless into form. And pardon me, that there are a couple of different ways to look at that. And to me, it's just like when I'm required to go back, and like most of the time I'm playing outside of accomplishment monster mode, and I'm exploring taking things a little bit more easily, and that the journey's the reward, and stop and smell the roses and the coffee and everything else that we can smell along the way. And I'm liking the exploration of that. And when I go back into accomplishment monster now, back into that mindset, it's kind of like I'm putting on an old jacket that's really worn in, just nice, and it's so comfortable. And there's the recognition that this is what's needed, and most of my days I'm looking for that flow state that you're talking about. I really I'm using that as my guide to when I feel that things are coming out of flow, I stop and I look around and go, okay, what am I missing here? And sometimes I'm able to go, oh, well, I'm doing this, and I'm just a little bit too tied to it being a certain way or whatever. I'm not enjoying the process of it. And sometimes that's a small adjustment, or other times I make several small adjustments and I just say, feels like the universe is telling me this isn't what I'm meant to be doing right now. And I used to think of that. And so I'm saying this for the purpose that if others are thinking of that, I used to think that that attitude was a luxury that I couldn't afford because I'm an accomplishment monster, and I need to get things done, and there is no downtime. There's just like the time where I shift from working on one goal to working on another, and there's not a whole lot of joy in that life if that's your lifestyle. But boy, there is a lot of joy in it when it's a temporary thing. And in fact, I'll tell you a story. We're getting ready to start working on our community garden again. Last year when we were doing it, there was a day where we had a work day and a whole bunch of people took a couple of hours off of work to come out and move dirt. I mean, it was physical labor. It was strenuous, but we had like about 12 or 13 people, I think, there for most of the part, and everybody's doing different roles and doing different things. And there was a storm that was coming in over the mountains, and you can see them sometimes when they're rolling in over the mountains. They'll like get up on the top of the mountains, and the mountains will kind of hold them there. But then you can see them, they go over, and now the clouds and the fog and the rain start creeping down the mountainside. So it's almost like you've got a countdown timer provided by nature. And we all looked up at that and go, okay, time to get busy. And so all of a sudden it was still fun, but we weren't treating as it was a game. It was like we were like we were trying to tap into the pit crew in the middle of an F1 pit stop when the oil's got to be changed and the fuel's got to be refilled and the new tires got to go on. And, the pit crew's trying to do all of that in about 11 seconds or 7 seconds or whatever. And when they nail it, they have a cause for celebration, and they get instant feedback because they can see how they did on the timer. And that's we adopted that attitude where we were just like, move it. And we're thinking, if we can get all of this in and get it tilled and get some seeds planted and everything, and then it rains, how beautiful is that going to be? And we were hustling and we got it done. And rain may have came before we were actually finished, but we got it done. And the joy of, and we were tired, it should have been done by the youth group portion of our library, but we don't have one. Everybody's my age, some younger, some older, but I'm kind of like the middle of the pack in the age group. So we're sitting there tired and we're exhausted and we're out of breath. But I mean, it felt like we had just won a big game or something. And it was just a game that we all kind of just decided to play together. And, if that's what we had thought we were signing up for, we probably would have go, oh God, no, I don't want to work my ass off for 45 minutes so we can get everything back, and done. That does not sound like fun, but it was amazing fun. So I think one of the things that I'm working with and coaching people on is looking for that flow energy that is occurring, and running from one gate to another in an airport can be fun, and it can be in flow, and it can be an interesting experience, and you can be checking your phone to see how much time do I have. Oh my God, where's the train? We're wasting seconds, and that could be fun whether or not you make it to the other flight or not. I mean, even if you don't, it's like, well, we left it all out in the terminal. It wasn't because we were being lazy or we stopped to read what cool new magazines are out there. And I'm going on a trip later this summer. I've got I think it's a 6-hour layover in the Amsterdam airport. And so we're just like, never been to the Amsterdam airport. I understand the international terminal there is amazing.
Yep.
And so that's going to be like day one of our journey is the flight and the 6 hours that we spent in the Amsterdam International Terminal. And, I hope that'll be a cool adventure, and it's just planning for that. So
cool. Yeah, it's huge. Huge. So yeah, we'll have a good time. You brought up something that we haven't talked about yet, and that's the dreaded outcome. The dreaded outcome, where you're presented with something that needs to be done, for example, and your mind, or you take your mind to, oh God, I don't want to do that. It's going to be awful. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be hard, whatever. And you go into the whole negative spiral of the thing. And you're living the outcome and you're living the suffering. And then you're like, no, I don't want to do it. And I think a lot of times, like I do some business coaching, and people who are like, oh, I don't want to do that because, and I don't want to do that because, and they've got all this negative or scarcity or fear-centered thinking, and they're putting it in their way in this sort of outcome focused thing. And then, of course, if you're painting a picture and you're feeling into the picture and it's going to be we're not really designed to go towards painful things, human beings in general, although some of us do that. So again, this would be a good example of where presence is very useful, to not go to or even, I mean, I broke my leg in the Christmas break and had to have a lot of different like x-rays and MRIs and CT scans because it was kind of a complicated break. And I had to be in a wheelchair, and I couldn't use crutches because both of my wrists were also damaged, even though it was the leg I'd broken. It was a really interesting experience. And I could have thought, because it's winter, there's snow and there's ice, and I cannot go outside basically because my leg's broken, my arms don't work, I'm in a wheelchair, etc., etc., etc. So I could have thought, oh, hermit, oh, I'm stuck inside, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, right? Oh, my life is awful and nobody comes to visit me and all. It's just, I could make it into this horrible drama, when the fact of the matter was, I was racing up and down the hallway and around the living room in my wheelchair and training, and it would sometimes hurt a lot, and I go, okay, I need to do a little bit less of that, but I'm having a ball, right, and trying to maneuver things, and it was all a new adventure because it was now. And there wasn't anything. And of course, that's not talking about the, okay, I got to go and get an MRI. I got to go to the emergency, whatever. So how we get me from here to the car, into the car, out of the car, right? Through the door, over the ice, blah, blah, blah. It's not living, oh God, I'm going to break my other leg, right? Or whatever. It's, okay, this is what I need to know to be able to get from here to here, which is a very now way of looking. It's just factual information. And then doing those things and in the moment making present adjustments to what needs to be done to get me from here to there, and not living in the, I'm going to die, I'm going to fall, right? As if it's some preordained outcome or whatever. So just using that as an example, we hadn't actually touched on that idea of the dreaded outcome, where I don't want to be carrying all of this dirt, and I don't want to be in the rain, and I don't want to be because it's awful. I'm going to freeze, I'm going to get soaking wet, and I might get sick and all of that. Instead of, if you look around, there's lots of other people. We could start singing and do this. We could start dancing and do this. We could tell cool stories. We could see how heavy the bags are that we could carry. We could do all kinds of things. We could start throwing mud at each other. I mean, there are all the possibilities in a moment are endless if we're present to them. So it's an invitation. And all y'all who are watching, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see any comments, and I'm not sure if you've commented at all. But if any of what we've been talking about or are talking about resonates with you, you have some of these experiences, let us know in the chat. And if we can't see it now, we'll go in afterwards and we'll look at your comments and we'll respond to you.
I think that's what we need to just plan to do, because we do have comments, and I have been doing a horrible job of like reading them and checking in because I'm like so locked on the screen here in our conversation. I forget to look down until my phone rings or I get a text message or something, which the alarm's going off. I'll share a couple, not so many questions. Kine Brenna, who may be a friend of yours, is what Kina is watching and just said hello. Rosalie says that she loves just the end of the chapter and the beginning of something new, something even better. Ooh, that's a nice enhancement, Rosalie. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a good way to look at, this is what I want, or something even better. I love that because it's a little bit of an more open idea, and it frees us up to take the blinders off and be looking to saying, okay, here's what I thought I wanted, here's what I'm getting, but am I missing something even better that may be out there? Yeah, so we are getting them. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of it. Was so much nicer when we could see them up here, but
yeah,
we go.
And I mean, thank you all again for your patience and your undying support, and hello to those of you who are watching. We are practicing this new routine, this new Facebook way of being, and we will get better. And sometimes we are present to all of the little things that we have to follow, and sometimes we're not. And that's kind of the way it is as we learn. And I'm going to you actually mentioned it again now, so I'm just going to bring it back to you. You had started with how a seemingly catastrophic or less than ideal situation ended up being surprisingly ideal. And that's kind of along the lines of what Rosalie is saying as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I want to pull back to something that you were saying about like using the example of if we had have known that we were signing up for working really hard and fast to avoid the rain and then getting stuck in the rain and having heavier dirt and all of that, nobody would have signed up for that. And that's the story that we sometimes tell ourselves. So everybody's probably seen the meme that you're not upset with the present moment. You're upset with your thinking around the present moment. I just like changing that a little bit better to the story that you're telling yourself about the present moment, because it's easier, at least I found, when I was talking about you're thinking about the present moment, that's that's just kind of like, what are you talking about? And as soon as one day I just kind of stumbled on, it's not the moment, it's the story that you're telling yourself about the present moment. Thankfully, the first person that I said that to goes, "Oh my God, you've hit the answer to all of my problems. I'm a wonderful storyteller, but too many of them are horror stories," or something like that. It was like a wild, over the top reaction that I'm like, ooh, okay, let's pull on this thread a little bit. And I've changed one of the things that you've heard me say a million times here, that our feelings, our emotions are never telling us about our circumstances. Rather, they're an internal weather report. That's the old quote that if anybody who's listened to all of these podcasts has heard that me say that 40 or 50 times at least. Now what I say now is, we're never upset about the moment in front of us. We're upset with the story that we're telling ourselves about the moment. And that, for me, just in my interactions with the clients that I work with, that's been a really neat shift, because it just fits better in their mind, because they're like, oh yeah, okay, and just say, what is the story? So that would be a prompt, if the idea of recognizing that we've got the flexibility to have the accomplishment monster approach and have the wander through life smelling the coffee and the roses and looking for happy accidents approach, if we see those as opposite ends of the spectrum and recognize there's 10,000 stops in between those two extremes, what it gives us is this beautiful flexibility, and now a prompt when we're, for many people that consider themselves to be procrastinators, they're not really procrastinators. They just need the pressure of a deadline, even an artificial one, to get something done. And they have to be racing against a deadline. And that's okay too. It's kind of stressful, I think. And most people who practice that will tell you it's a stressful way to go through life. So, that may be an indication that it's not the best one for you. But just looking for flow, like, whatever that means to you, just like the idea of effort accomplishment. In the East, they call it Wu Wei, effortless action. And that to me is a wonderful sweet spot to be shooting for in the process of doing that. And if you're not in there, that can be a really good prompt to say, okay, what am I telling myself? What assumptions am I making right now about what I'm doing that's making this feel like so much drudgery? And seeing what comes back, any of these styles can work. All of these styles are the perfect approach in certain contexts and in certain mindsets. There are different times when, I'm feeling wavy gravy and loosey goosey, and I just want to be one with all that is, and all of that. And there's other times that I'm like, let's get her done, and just having the the flexibility to use any of those approaches in certain circumstances, and to recognize the one that we need in this moment. What's the right one for us right now? That we get back to, there's an NLP foundational idea that he who has, or she who has the most flexibility tends to win. You know, just because you become like water. You know, water is just going to keep flowing unless it gets into a stagnant pool that it can't get out of, and then, you know, it might need a little help to get out of that to continue to flow. And having that be the interplay of life and playing with that energy, in my experience, it makes life more of a moving meditation and an accomplishment meditation. And there's probably not going to be bliss in every moment, and you probably wouldn't like it if there was. But, you know, you can get back into a blissful state much more easily. And if you do that enough, then a cool little switch gets flipped, where all of a sudden now it's like, I'm in flow, I'm wavy gravy, I'm cool, and I'm accomplishing stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm not, and that can become, okay, what's going on here? Well, I'm on a deadline, and this approach isn't going to get me where I need to go. And, you know, if you're riding the bike and, you know, taking in all of the beauty and nature around you, and, you know, you're still 10 miles away from your destination and your event is starting in 5 minutes, odds are good that strategy's not going to do the trick. So you may find yourself having to do that. So that kind of is, I think we're so conditioned to accomplish goals and to get things done and to master our to-do list. And now I'm seeing ads for AI software that will help you schedule your calendar. And if you have a 15-minute break, it'll find a task that you can do in 15 minutes and stuff it in there. And it's like, great, that sounds like being the rat in the maze. And the AI has just been able to, like, know exactly where to set the charge to keep you moving in the direction that your controllers want you to move in. So different, a little bit of a different way of looking at that. We're getting close to the top of the hour, Miriam. Do you have some final thoughts?
We are. I was just going to say, we are at the top of the hour. We're over the top of the hour, even. Nailed over the top, and now we're on our downward spiral. Bobbles, you are on such a good roll. Is there anything? I know you've got your book, and you've put the link in our free Facebook group. So anybody who would like to have a look at your book, The Unencumbered Life by Bobby Cobb, can go in there and get hold of the link, right?
Yes. And it should be live everywhere currently except Amazon. It's going to get on Amazon, but it's like they are, you know, they're such a powerful, amazing platform that they can just set rules. And their rules are very much guided toward only, they are gearing everything towards selling it exclusively through them, which I don't want to do. So, so it's available everywhere, unencumbered, and it comes in both an audio version, and you can find the audio book everywhere but Audible, and it will be on Audible this week. That's the version that I like, because that comes with the book as a PDF. And this is really, it's an immersion program. I've got 8 sections, and each section has got a written chapter, which is very much formatted like every written chapter from every non-dual book, or, you know, mindfulness book, or, really every self-help book. It sounds just like what you're used to doing it. Then the audio version is me kind of explaining it to you. And it's like having a friend explain it to you, except in this case, it's the author that's explaining it to you. And then each chapter has got a guided visualization designed to give you the embodied understanding of what you've just consumed in two different formats, and now we're giving it to you in a third. And in the subject of realization or non-duality, or what I just call liberation, I don't use the term awakening or enlightenment or any of those things, because those to me feel very much like it is describing an achievement, and specifically it's describing a rare and elusive achievement that may take many lifetimes of pursuit. And that just wasn't my experience when I had my awakening experience that people describe, which I describe in the book, what that happened. And to me, it was the exact opposite of everything I had been conditioned to believe. It was just like a falling away of so much of the things that I had come to believe were true. And I just like, oh, I just made that up. And it wasn't always me. It was me combined with my conditioning to get my unique blend of a lot of stuff that we've assumed. So I'm going to be, I have also released it. If you are on the Insight Timer meditation app, I am a teacher there. I have submitted the class for approval, and I'm under the impression it's a couple of days away. They gave me some feedback saying that a couple of the pictures that I had used did not meet their criteria, and I had not capitalized certain things that they required to be capitalized. So the fact that that's the feedback that I'm getting, I'm assuming they don't really have much problem with the content of the course. So that will be a course that you can go through for free on the Insight Timer app if you are a premium member. So it's not quite for free. You have to subscribe to it, but it's kind of like Netflix, you just, if you are already paying the fee, and there's an amazing amount of courses on there. I'll be teaching it there as well. That's a cool platform for it. So thank you for that. And how about you, dear Miriam? I know you have a lot of cool and interesting stuff going on. What do you have to share?
Thank you, kind sir. I am presently looking for 5 people who want to work intensively one-to-one with me. Doing a 12-week deep dive. It's renewable deep dive program. So if you need more than 12 weeks, we can have a look at that. Where we work almost every day together, some for longer periods of the day, some for just 15 minutes maximum in the day. What that does is it helps keep you on track and not or less likely to relapse and fall off track. And over an extended period, it builds strong, where the idea is to build strong habits and where you no longer need me and you can go on your own. So that is the invitation. I call it Undefiable Intensive, and it's part of my Becoming Invincible program. I'm also going to be relaunching the self-study version of Undefiable. It is an online course, and you can take it all on your own without me if you want to. Some people work really well on their own, but we do have group sessions once a week where it's possible to ask questions or talk about a theme. So if you're interested in anything like that, you are more than welcome to contact me, and my contact information is here. I also like to remind you that I do psychic mediumship reading and healings and they are 45 or 90 minutes in length, and you are welcome to book one of those as well. And information is on my website, centrumx.com. Yes, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to share with people. I've been a practicing hypnotherapist for 20 plus years, and that's really all I've done besides coaching. And people sometimes assume that because of that, I must never need any kind of outside guidance. I probably have got it all figured out, and that so much is not true. I've had hypnotists and that I'll trade stuff with them, and I wanted to share that sometimes when the Presence Posse members need an outside sounding board or a fresh perspective or a different set of eyes to look at a problem that we're stuck on, we call on each other. And I recently called on you. You and I had a session, and it was a reading on Friday. It was the 90-minute variety, which if your budget and your time allows it, I think there were so many things that came up during that were interesting and new and that I hadn't considered, that I really felt like having the full 90-minute session was a gift, because we might have just dived in and looked at that one issue that I was looking at, and I got cool insights from that. But then we were able to like pull on a couple of threads together, and it was luxurious. So just wanted to give you a little, my 2 thumbs up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
That is the Presence Posse Roundtable talk for today. Now, what I have to do, bear with me, y'all, I actually have to go into Facebook and find the group and disconnect us there.
Oh, well, I'm in. Or do you have to do that?
As far as I know, I have to do it.
Okay, that's probably
So,
true. That makes sense.
Let's see. This could be interesting. All right. So we're going to give this a shot. And if you notice that we're kind of talking a little bit afterwards, that's because I haven't found the turn it off button in Facebook, but I found it here in StreamYard, which is where we're actually broadcasting from. So I would like to thank all of you who are watching, have been watching and commenting. And of course, you're more than welcome to watch the replay and comment, and we will follow up on that. Thanks again for being so patient with us with all of these new techie things. I think it's really, really cool and exciting. And I haven't quite figured it out yet. So there are still some possibilities here. I'm really excited. So next week is the last installment of our trilogy on presence and creation. And for the life of me at the moment, I cannot recall what the third one is.
I can't either. And I was just, the story that I was just telling inside my head when you started that, thank God Miriam remembers.
Except that I don't. I'm looking at my little notes here thinking maybe I've written it somewhere, but I have not. So for all y'all who are still with us and you're interested, join us next Monday at the same time and you'll find out.
But
we're going to, of course, put some information.
Well, I guess the trilogy is presence and creation. Is that all? Is creation is that our third topic as well?
No, it isn't actually. We've been manifesting and outcomes and something along the lines of creation. You'll just have to turn up and find out. We will, of course, make an event and write some information in the Facebook Presence Posse Free Facebook group. So please go in there and have a look. And you're more than welcome, by the way, to send us questions ahead of time. If there's something you would like us, or hints of things you'd like us to discuss. So please do that. So from Bobby Cobb and me, and on behalf of the entire Presence Posse, thanks very much for being with us, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.